So friends, yesterday, a federal judge ordered Trump's top White House lawyers to tell all to the grand jury. And today, it looks like they did precisely that. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So let's do a quick update on a story that we touched on yesterday. And let's start with yesterday's headline, this from CNN. Federal judge orders former top lawyers in Trump's White House to testify in criminal grand jury probe. A federal judge has ordered former top Trump White House lawyers to provide additional grand jury testimony rejecting former President Donald Trump's privilege claims in the Justice Department's criminal investigation of his effort to overturn the 2020 election, people briefed on the matter said. And now, friends, one day later, here's the headline, again from CNN. Former Trump White House counsel and his deputy testify to January 6th criminal grand jury. Former Trump White House counsel Pat Cipollone and Deputy Counsel Patrick Philbin testified to a federal grand jury for several hours in Washington, D.C. on Friday, indicating the Justice Department had compelled the men to answer more questions in the January 6, 2021 criminal investigation, despite challenges from Donald Trump's legal team. Okay, friends, let's unpack that. Recall when Pat Cipollone was testifying before the J6 Congressional Committee. There were several times when the interrogators, the people questioning Pat Cipollone, asked him some questions about what Donald Trump said, what Donald Trump did, and you could see Cipollone wanted to answer, but he would look over at his lawyer, and his lawyer would, send the signal that you can't answer that. Cipollone would turn back to the questioner and basically indicate, yeah, I can't answer that. And the January 6th committee doesn't really have the tools available to compel somebody to testify, to force them to testify under those circumstances. But federal prosecutors, when they put a witness in the grand jury and the witness plays that same game, yeah, I'm not going to answer those questions because there might be some privilege, executive privilege, and I don't want to violate it, so I decline to answer those questions. Well, in the grand jury, federal prosecutors do have the tools available to challenge and overcome those privileges. So what did the prosecutors do? Well, we heard in yesterday's reporting that they litigated the issue. They go from the grand jury over to the closed-door courtroom, because all of this is done in secret. It's all protected by the rules of grand jury secrecy. And they go see Chief Judge Beryl Howell. She's the Chief Judge of Federal District Court in Washington, D.C. She has supervisory responsibility over grand jury proceedings, and they litigate the issue. And Cipollone's lawyers and Philbin's lawyers make the best arguments they can as to why they shouldn't have to testify about this. It's protected by executive privilege. And evidently, Chief Judge Howell ruled that no, you will testify. The privilege doesn't apply. Why might a privilege not apply? Because of this little thing called the crime fraud exception. If Donald Trump was talking about crime he intended to commit, if he was commissioning crimes, if he was asking others to commit crimes with him or for his benefit, guess what? You don't get to invoke a privilege to bury that stuff, to keep that stuff hidden from law enforcement or from the grand jury or from the federal prosecutors. So it looks like that litigation was resolved yesterday, and today, one day later, Cipollone and Philbin are back in the grand jury spilling their guts, testifying about all of Donald Trump's, what I believe are incriminating statements. So what are the main takeaways from these revelations? Well, first, the information that Pat Cipollone refused to tell the January 6th committee, and at least initially refused to tell the grand jury until the privilege was litigated and it looks like it yielded, and Chief Judge Howell ordered him to tell the grand jury that information that Pat Cipollone was not inclined to testify about. Do you really think it's helpful to Donald Trump, or do you think it's sharply incriminating? Which may in part be why Pat Cipollone didn't want to spit it out before the J6 committee or in the grand jury. Now, let me give him some credit. Maybe he just had a legitimate concern about the privilege and he didn't want to be accused of making the wrong decision if he decided the privilege didn't apply. And that's actually smart, because if he had testified about it and he was wrong and the privilege did apply, then he might be violating his own ethics or the code of conduct of attorneys. But once a judge orders you to testify and says the privilege yields, well, then you are bulletproof. Nobody can make an ethical claim because a judge has made a decision, the privilege yields, and now you get to testify about those matters. But do you really think any of what came out today in the grand jury was helpful to Donald Trump? Not on your life. Here's the second important takeaway. How quickly did it happen? Litigated yesterday, back in the grand jury today. Pat and Philbin, to spill your guts, tell all about Donald Trump and his crimes. Boy, the pace of the investigation is quickening. There's no two ways about that. Why is it quickening? I have a feeling it has a little something to do with this guy, the newly appointed special counsel Jack Smith, who has been tasked with investigating the crimes of Donald Trump. Friends, things are happening. Good things. It really does feel like we're moving in the right direction, like we're moving toward justice. And justice matters. Friends, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.